Hello and welcome to Escrow Talks. Today we have with us a very special guest, Mr. Amitabh Tewary. Amitabh comes from a wide array of experiences across different streams, from advertising to networks to banks to fintech and whatnot. He's a master of communication. He has an uncanny knack of expressing himself in a very unique and distinct style. Uh, Welcome, Amitabh. And it is a privilege to have you with us. First of all, we would want to know who is Amitabh Tewary and how has been your journey so far in last so many years. So yeah, over to you.
Thank you, Amit. Thank you, Castro team, for having me and for all the very nice things you said about me. I do not really know whether I am worthy of so many accolades. But yes, it's always a pleasure to speak to you, Amit. We have had the good fortune of working together in our previous gig, and beyond that, our relationship has endured, and so that I consider that a privilege. If I were to speak about myself, I think the first thing that comes to mind is that I don't take myself and life too seriously. If I were to really describe myself, that would be, if I have to sum it up in one sentence, that's how I would like to sum it up. That I do not take myself very seriously, nor do I take life very seriously, because we are a sum total of obviously what we do, what we attempt, what efforts we bring to bear, but also so many other things which are outside of our control. So many people who play a role in things that happen to us, both good and bad, circumstances, decisions. So that's my philosophy of living life. That's how I would like to describe myself. Also, having said that, I'm grateful you spoke about my long career, which kind of also is a euphemism for how old one has become. So when I look back, it's with a lot of fondness. I have spent 25 years working in the corporate setups, of which the about 4 or 5 years were also spent with two exciting organizations, which were startups. One in the edtech space and the other one in the fintech payment space. The rest of it has been with largely global organizations, typical corporate structures. So after having spent 25 years, exactly 25 years, I sort of took the less trodden path of entrepreneurship, like you have chosen for yourself. And for the last 2 years, so I founded Ahedge in 2023, and along with other colleagues and friends who progressively joined the organization. We've been trying to build it close to 2 years now, and we've been trying to build this organization ground up, building services in the risk and compliance management for financial services. The plan is to eventually take risk and compliance management to a broader set of businesses, but we are starting with financial services. So that has been the journey so far in a nutshell. So I believe all of us as individuals, as human beings, we are a reflection of the circumstances which have brought us up. So I am the youngest in my family, which also meant that I had the privilege of not really having too many responsibilities, financial or otherwise. So I lived a very carefree life. I would not call myself somebody who was really adept at managing my career, because career management sometimes is a little different from managing your jobs and work, right? I was somebody who was always interested in giving my 100% to the work that I was doing, taking on challenges. I get very bored if things are just BAU and there is no challenge to solve. I guess all of us have that trait in us. Every individual. I'm not different. But in me, that trait is very dominant. So which means if things are just moving along nicely in a certain manner and there is nothing hard or tough to solve, to look forward to, then I start getting a little uneasy. In fact, if I look at my MasterCard career, which was a long 10 years, I have changed my role some 4 times within those 10 years, which is quite a lot for a organization like MasterCard, which is highly successful, stable, and a very comfortable, employee-friendly place to work at. So I changed my role 4 times in that organization as well. Always trying to look for something new. I don't know. I mean, restlessness, curiosity, whatever you may call it. Razorpay happened partly out of that desire to challenge myself, to try something new. And also the fact that Razorpay had the confidence, sort of to bet on somebody who was already 45 years old at that time, past the due date, as they call it. So the founders of Razorpay were known, as Mastercard was an investor company in Razorpay. So we had the chance to interact very frequently. And they felt that I could come and add value. So they gave me the opportunity. And I spent 3 years in Razorpay at the time when these are the 3 years of the company's journey when it went from being a promising mid-sized fintech to probably arguably one of the best fintechs in India today, which is almost like a 20x growth during those short 3 years. Lots of investment rounds, valuations skyrocketing, all of that I had the good fortune to see. So that desire kind of took me to Razorpay, right? To try and make my job more meaningful, and of course more rewarding, no doubt about that. But meaningful is the first operating word. So that's how we went there, and 3 years of peak activity and not one dull moment, but also some great relationships, friendships, such as yours, which really helped me grow and develop as a person, right? Because your learning is something which starts stopping if you keep doing the same thing again and again, keep meeting and interacting with the same people again and again. Friends are for keeps, no doubt, but in order to keep learning and growing, you have to expand your network of people, your interactions, because everyone has something to give you, something to teach you. So strange, right? I mean, I would not have planned it while going to Razorpay. I would have looked forward to doing a few things. This certainly was not a part of that. And those 2 years, 2.5 years of building the risk team and managing risk led me to my startup. So that's how life is, right? And you always have to be ready for surprises. Some work, some don't work out, but nevertheless, you have to be accepting of all.
Perfect. You've been there with card networks, I think, for so long, especially MasterCard, and then with Razorpay. You've seen fintech's evolution in this country. And what is your advice to the fintech founders, especially with these last 10 years? I think fintechs have come of the age in lot many ways. How do you see the future?
Right. Let's first, in fact, I also left out one part of your previous question, which is how do I see Ahedge growing? What are our plans? So I'll come to that, after I answer the one that you just asked. Um, my approach would be to look at why do fintechs exist in the first place. So there is a specific purpose that fintechs fulfill, the way I see it. Of course, the trigger for a fintech to take shape is always a person or a group of people, persons feeling very strongly about a problem that they see, or a personal goal that they have, and wanting to either realize that personal goal or the desire to solve that problem that they clearly see and for which nobody is really doing anything substantial. So you see that there is a challenge in the service that people are consuming. You see that there is an issue or a problem with processes that are being run, and that too widely across many organizations. So whether is a business problem, it's a consumer problem, you first identify that problem. So you need to have that that eye or that vision where you are able to pinpoint or detect that, okay, this is where the fault lines lie. And once you've done that, you feel strongly enough uh, to want to do something about it, right? And of course, it's intricately woven with your own personal growth and your own financial and success goals, right? So once they match, you obviously add a little bit of the ingredient of risk taking, bravado, courage, whatever you call it, and then you make the jump, right? So the way I see it, typically founders are those who start the journey very early on when the opportunity cost is very low. There is nothing much to lose, and they know that if it were not to work out, they have something to go back to. They will be accepted. Or those who are already experienced, they have seen and lived through business cycles, and they know that okay, now it's time for me to bring all of that together and do something big or do something meaningful. Either way, these are the traits that the founders need to have, and this is how startups take shape. So that is how startups come into being, to solve a certain problem the way the founding team sees it. Right now, that problem may not be existent. Sometimes what happens is that you start with a lot of enthusiasm, and later you realize that there was a method to the madness. If the problem existed there, it's because it was not big enough to sort of merit a high tech solution. Or sometimes you see that the problem is just too difficult to solve because of a maze of compliances, interdependencies, whatever the case may be, correct? But in those few cases where you have been able to spot the problem or the opportunity, as I call it, right, the right way, thereafter the journey starts, and then it's all about how prepared and how open you are to shape, modify, change, adapt along that journey. I don't know, and I don't think, maybe barring a few exceptions which can be counted on the fingertips. Now beyond that, some startup enterprises have the promise, the sheen, to be able to attract a lot of investments. Some are bootstrapped, some try to raise the money, but do not find so much success. But invariably, right, irrespective of the scale, whether you become a multi-billion-dollar enterprise with a lot of turnover, or whether you are a small shop with just a few crores of turnover, irrespective, these key ingredients, I think, don't change, right? We tend to believe that the super successful ones would be doing things differently. I think everyone does things the same way. And beyond that, like I said, it's circumstances, decisions, your stars, of course, your capabilities, and how you were able to put the whole thing together. So this is what I think, in my view, is the startup journey.
One important thing, what I also feel is destiny ka tadka. That's very important. To strike that balance. I mean, you were there, at the right time, doing the right thing, with the right setup, with the right people. It is seldom. It is very, very seldom. I mean, not every person starts up, but he starts with that thought, that positivity every time, that he'll be able to deliver something for the cause that he has undertaken. But it might go south, it might go north. But I think, as an entrepreneur, what you end up is, you end up as a more accomplished human being, more accomplished, personality. I think that is definitely proud. It might be successful. I think one question that we left was about the plans of Ahedge. So you could just talk about.
Sure. So I'll just quickly tell you about Ahedge. So Ahedge is a risk and financial service company, which essentially leverages technology to deliver what we are building. The insight is very simple, and this came from, like I mentioned before, it came from my stint at Razorpay. Financial businesses are becoming more and more regulated. Also, they are getting more and more digitized. So, with digitization and increased regulation, two things happen. The way malpractices, frauds, and these things happen. I mean, they have been happening ever since mankind has existed. I'm sure, right? If you go back to the era of Mahabharata or Ramayana, there were what types of characters even then, right? So there will be those bad actors always. But the modus operandi of these people also changes, because they sometimes are faster to adapt to new things, and they're very organized. So these attacks, whether it's a ransomware attack, fraud attack, any kind of let's say synthetic identity creation, there are various types, right? Mules, you would be hearing all of these things. Now look at India. India has a demographic which is extremely heterogeneous in terms of age profiling, the regions, languages, right? The the journey that people have traversed in terms of their comfort and understanding of financial services, and especially when they are delivered to them digitally. So to assume that everybody intrinsically knows how to keep themselves safe is a fallacy, right? So RBI and other regulators know that, they realize that, they understand that people are at different stages of their journey in terms of adoption of digital financial services. And that's why they try to make sure that the last person in the queue is protected, their interests are protected. And hence all the requirements of regulations and security standards and all of that. Our insight was very simple, that as financial businesses get increasingly digitized, maybe fully digitized and automated, right? There will be a need for specialized services, which could be in three areas. Either you need to optimize your technology setup, or you need to optimize your people, your talent pool, or you need to fill your knowledge gaps. So you may not know how to keep your business safe and secure and how to comply with regulations. So that falls under the knowledge piece. You may have a workforce which may not have the required skills, or you might be ending up hiring people in the absence of the right tools. You might be hiring people who probably are misfits for those kind of jobs. So that's part of the people services piece. Or your technology may not be optimized because you're stuck with either legacy technology or even new technology which is not able to completely fill all your requirements. So this is how we've started our journey, and we are building our tech platforms across all the three. We're trying to sort of disrupt the way, particularly in the area of people services. How today hiring is done, how skilling is done, how skill upgradation through certifications is done. So in all of those three areas, we're trying to use technology to both automate and optimize the processes so that you reduce your attrition, you increase your productivity, you make sure that your employee is happy and the organization is happy, and there is no loss of knowledge because of people frequently coming and leaving. Also because they don't know how to do their job, right? So that's a big piece. It sounds very easy, but it's actually very difficult. And on the other side, of course, on the tech side, we are aggregating a lot of tech solutions into our platform so that you have the flexibility to work with whichever one fits you best for your needs. So it creates more options. It creates the flexibility of only paying what you are using and not just buying something and keeping it sitting there. And on the knowledge side, we are building a panel of experts, multidisciplinary. The target is to have about 150 experts on our panel, which come from various areas of regulation, government requirements, law, compliance, tax, legal, and of course business, right? Because you need to have the business understanding first and foremost. And this will go. It is not just limited to payments. This is the entire financial, services swath. So your current account, savings account, your loans, your payments, foreign exchange, trade. We cover all the areas across these three.
Very interesting. I think very interesting proposition that you have, and especially I can relate to a lot of them since raising a startup, we encounter these problems day in and day out, and definitely I think you are solving for a bigger chunk, and the ecosystem players who don't understand these things, they know how to build a business, but they are not able to relate to these challenges. That points me to my next question. Regulation versus innovation, right? So I would not say it's versus, I would say regulation and innovation. I think this is one question which has been doing rounds for quite some time, especially in the last 10 years, what I have witnessed. I think the Indian financial ecosystem has gone a paradigm shift in terms of the way we used to behave and the way we behave right now. I think consumer behaviors have changed, the methods have changed, the payment instruments have become the protocols of government, and many things around that. You being in the center of this for good amount of time and a first-hand witness to all of this, how do you see this? How do we manage the innovation and regulation so that they work in tandem? In most of the places, personally, from my experience, I see that regulations are more far-sighted. They give you a better understanding, which at a given point of time, your understanding might not be there because the people who are making it, the people who are building it, they are more accomplished, they understand the sentiments. And for them, the last mile consumer is the most important one. So wanted to understand your views on this, that how do we balance between both of them and create a
Sure.
niche kind of ecosystem?
So that's a great question, Amit. And in fact, one part of your previous question, which was about how do you see fintechs, the future of fintechs, right? How do you see them performing in the days to come? We spoke about why fintechs exist, but I guess that part got missed out. So I've already shared my opinion on my view on why fintechs get started to begin with, right? Why any startup actually comes into being. The next part of the question was, how do we see the future, or I see the future of fintech? So, so that essential ingredient or reason will always remain, which means there will be some fault lines, a few things which are sort of holding a process or a business back from really scaling or delivering a better experience to customers. And therefore, fintechs will keep. Um, there will always be roles that, let's say, established players will be required to play. Banks, for instance, or any other player which has gained scale and therefore becomes systemically important. Correct. You expect those players to, yes, keep innovating, keep becoming better, but you also expect a certain predictability, a certain stability in their processes. Correct. If a bullet train were to run in India between two cities, you will welcome that. But if that came at the expense of your local trains in Mumbai, for instance, or somewhere else not running on time, it's not a trade-off that you would accept. So once a process or a service, a model has reached, let's say, maturity, uh, consumers or users of that system, that service, expect a certain predictability, stability, uniformity of service, and rightly so. But that doesn't mean that the pace of innovation should slacken, right? So therefore, there will always be need for people who bring a new perspective, look at things a bit differently, cut through the maze, and can shape a future which is brighter, more efficient. So there will always be the need for fintechs. There is a very distinct role that they play versus the established organizations which have achieved scale. Now, coming to the question of innovation versus regulation, because fintechs or startups are invariably linked to innovation. Imagine innovating at that scale and getting their innovations or new builds adopted by such a millions of people. Closer home in India, look at NPCI, for instance, right? I think their pace of innovation is faster and more impressive than any startup that you can think of. I mean, the amount of things they have built and they have created in such a short span of time, and credit to them that in their about 15 years of existence, um, there has not been any black swan event in the country in the NPCI setup of staggering nature, right? When you think that they are the only system today in India who runs real-time payment called UPI, and it has been running for 8-9 years with no major blackouts or no major attacks or compromises. That's really commendable. On the other side, even the UID infrastructure, although that's for other purposes is there, but there is a payment system also appended to it. 10 odd years been running with, there were so many naysayers, which brings me to the question of innovation and regulation, right? It is a very difficult task to be a regulator in a country like India. Look around you. I mean, the whole world, financial systems they go sometimes to the brink. They may not fail, but they go to the brink and somehow they are brought back. In some countries, in some economies, they're actually in a downward spiral, in a tailspin, correct? So for India, which is one of the developing countries with so many challenges, developmental goals, societal goals, and balance of payment challenges, your foreign exchange reserve challenges, to be able to drive innovation, make sure that new technology gets adopted, which let's say drives or accelerates the movement from cash to electronic payments, which then has a very deep impact on the black or the parallel economy. Not just that, it also has a very deep impact on the financial upliftment of people, right? Financial upliftment of people in the sense that small businesses whose money used to sit under their mattresses in cash form, today that money has acquired so much more velocity, right? And we sometimes don't understand that, but today that gives that person the confidence that there is time saved in banking that money in the bank, in sending that money to their relatives back in the village or in the small town, or deploying that money for more business cycle sites. It's incredible outcome. Now, all of this has been achieved not just because of the brilliance of the systems that have been built, but we must know and acknowledge that it has also been done because of the role that the regulator, and in this case, the government has played, even beyond the regulator. Well, jury's out. I mean, it's a divided opinion on how would you rate it, correct? If you are somebody who is only interested in the outcome, then this is a great outcome for a 10-year journey for a country like India. What is 10 years in the history or lifetime of a country? See where we have come in 10 years. From where we were to where we are today in terms of the global pecking order of adoption of technology in banking, particularly payments, not just payments, wealth tech. You pick so many financial services streams. It is incredible, and at the cost which is going to make jaws drop, because if you compare this with what Europe or US or some of those economies have done, the cost of driving this change and adoption, it can't even be compared. So the regulator has been able to achieve, and I would say the government and of course all the entities who they run, they have been able to achieve this without really causing any major disturbance, disruption, or damage to the system, keeping the economy intact, not taking it to the brink. And at the same time, they have taken it to the almost to the top of the pecking order when it comes to payments, at least, which is where you and I come from. The journey, if you look at, there might be instances where there would be a lot of questions, right? I mean, when two-factor authentication was brought in, more recently in cross-border payments, also two-factor authentication has been introduced, right? There were naysayers that this is going to kill the industry even before it has taken off. Instead, it has made the industry one of the safest in the world, correct? UPI has kind of, it is vigorously replacing cash. But the journey of taking UPI to this level obviously must have trampled on a few feet, because some people would have felt that they are not getting maybe enough to compete, or their business models are kind of withering away. So it depends on what you look at. If you look at the outcome, and if you look at, the happiness or the satisfaction index of the country as a whole and where the country has moved, I don't think there will be too many people who would doubt that. It is an incredible outcome, correct? But in between, yes, some business models might have got affected. Some people might have lost out. Those things would have happened. I would not be pompous enough to call that collateral damage. Ideally, everyone should be, included, and they should be taken along the journey. But yeah, I mean, that's the outcome that we all know. So innovation and regulation have been proven to go hand in hand in India. It is not even a concept anymore. It is evidenced from, what has happened in the last 10, 12 years in the country. Sometimes the whole picture is not visible to everyone. And frankly, that's how it should be also. I mean, sometimes knowledge is also is a problem. Yeah. For instance, if you knew what were to happen 5 days from now, in your life, you might be able to plan it better, but you might also not be able to sort of, discard it from your consciousness, and you would be driven by it, correct? So I think innovating organizations, fintechs, etc., they look at, maybe they have a tunnel vision, or they look at a specific problem or a set of problems in a certain way without thinking overall of the ecosystem. And I think it should be that way, because if you started thinking about everybody and had a wider scope, you would not be able to innovate, you would not be able to move at that brisk pace. At the same time, it is the job of the regulator to understand what is the context that the fintech is coming from. What is it that they're trying to achieve? What is the result that they are trying to come at? And is it only for making their valuations grow, or does it have something in it for the public and the businesses? But temper it, sort of moderate it, because they have the wider sort of understanding of India, of the global order. They also need to be seen as a enabling regulator, because now everyone looks at RBI when it comes to the slickest regulators who keep the system safe but also drive innovation. So they have to benchmark themselves against all the top regulators. So a lot of things to manage, but I think they each of them have a role to play. And in India, I think we are in a great space. I think there is a perfect balance of innovation and regulation. Probably the compliance bit could eventually be made a bit simpler. Well, the government and RBI both have taken cognizance of that. In fact, as we speak, there is in the public domain, there is a statement, a publication by RBI that they're trying to sort of uncomplicate and demystify the whole thing about regulations and compliances and make it streamlined and simple so that businesses don't have to knock on too many doors or do too many things. It is eventually going to get streamlined.
I'll move to the next question. I think one area, again, in the last 5, 6 years, we have seen a lot of disruption, which is transaction banking. And especially where people like us, around our solutions that we built around escrow, around current account, and the entire CRM tools that we built on top of that. I mean, we are trying to disrupt the market in our own unique way, very niche kind of segment, but a lot of use cases, a plethora of use cases that we are solving for. I mean, being a specialist, in this domain, not only in transaction banking, but in financial services, how do you see the opportunity that this kind of business holds for future?
Well, I think when the first time that I got to know um, what you were building at Castler, you might recall, may not specifically recall the meeting, but you recall the conversation, how it went. I'm someone who deeply believes in this, right? I think it took me no time to tell you that, this is a winner, right? It, it's about how to execute this, which can pose challenges. And I'll give you my view. I mean, you all are closer to this business and you would be dealing with it day in and day out, but I'll give you a slightly outside in perspective. Okay, let me say this way straight. I mean, we are not a trust-based society. Let's put it this way, correct? And it's not a negative thing I'm saying. It's just about the fact that we are such a heterogeneous developing economy, education levels, etc., are still sort of, not that high. Um, the daily interactions between people of a country in
Just wanted to add one thing here. I mean, sorry to,
no, sure.
meddle in. So I think the income disparity that we see in our kind of ecosystem. So most of the times, people really don't want to be corrupt. People don't want to do something wrong. But there are scenarios, there are situations, right? And I think there is an old saying which says that when stakes are high in a pressure cooker situation, the first casualty is ethics, right?
Yeah.
So we are a kind of ecosystem where different streams of life, different horizons, different windows, and I mean, lot of I believe that most of the times people really don't want to do what they really do end up doing. I mean, on the nefarious side of things, but it is just that situations propel them to do that, right? So
Yes.
that was the point I was trying to make. Yeah, over to you, please.
So, the deficit of trust in the society could be for various reasons, right? I mean, maybe trains run late, flights run late, your road is broken, etc. I'm not trying to say that things are all bad, but this is what you've grown up seeing. The two parties don't trust each other, so they have to trust a neutral party, who, by the way, uh, has someone to govern or have a sight on, right? So that third party is not completely reckless and without any monitoring. And the challenges, okay, the challenges here are because of the larger framework of operation, right? Because there is a legal angle to it, there is an operational angle to it, there is a regulation angle to it. Who can do what, who can't do what, legally, what is tenable, what is not tenable. And that kind of, I would not use the word compromise, but that kind of slows down the speed sometimes. That also kind of limits what all you can bring into the purview and what you can't. But I believe that just as there are so many things that you need as essential part of your life, this is something you need as essential part of your life, right? I mean, if I were to sort of go like really ahead in time, there could in fact be a consumer service of escrow. Like you have a doctor, you have a medical service provider, a legal service provider, you could have an escrow service provider, right? Who could actually do things on your behalf. It's like saying that, for my transaction, I have a representative who will make sure that, that representative facilitates it. That I think is the level to which it can go. But then it goes through the whole lanes and labyrinth of all of the challenges. I hope I was right in listing them. But legal tax, regulation, who can do something, can't do something, who can touch the money, who can't touch the money, what are the tax implications on the person touch. Some of those things will evolve over a period of time. To my mind, Amit, and that is something that I'm facing by the way, in Ahedge, in risk management, right? Similarly, I think in risk management, for instance, if somebody has not been performing, it may not appear as a big problem to you, or is making errors in the risk management process. You may not even notice much. Ki, "Haan, this is okay. It will happen." But if I add it up and tell you that this actually cost you 10 crore rupees in the year, your eyes will pop out, saying that 10 crore, I never realized it, because that's disguised inefficiency which you are not able to spot generally, and that's a hard task for us to go and convince people that I will save this 10 crores for you, so give me 1 crore, you know. Similarly, for you to be able to sort of describe it in terms of the financial challenges or problems it creates, and the social impact it can have, that quantification is not easy. But if that quantification can be done, I think it makes for a compelling story for the regulating bodies, government bodies to actually create regulation. It also creates a compelling story for the investor community to know that you are actually chasing something which is massive. So that was probably an unworthy and uncalled for piece of advice, but I just thought I'll just speak my mind and tell you what I think.
That was a
And
great advice.
no amount of socializing or hard selling it is enough. You need to maybe do it for like 3 years, 4 years, till people say, wow, yes, I mean, it was staring us, but we didn't know. So, yeah, that's my view.
I think there are enough and more broken pieces from data perspective in the market, which we have been able to join together and create a narrative around this. And these data points very clearly, I mean, give us a direction where it's all headed to in terms of understanding whether it's a TAM or a whatever, conversation or a SOM kind of ecosystem. So clearly there is an understanding, but yeah, I mean, very rightly said that it's a long way to go. And from a processing perspective, we need to bring more finesse in terms of the relevant data points. So definitely, I think that's a very valid suggestion. The point that I was trying to make at that time, Amitabh, was that I said that कोई जानबूझ के चोरी नहीं करता है, right? So another subset of that was that and it's an old saying, and you and me would have grown in our houses, कि ताला आप किस लिए लगाते हो, right? ताला आप इसलिए लगाते हो कि ईमानदार आदमी चोर न बने,
चोर न बन जाए,
right?
उसकी नीयत ना खराब हो
But
जाए.
the
Yes.
point that I was trying to make was that वो जो 95% जनता है जो चोर नहीं बनना चाहती है, जो ईमानदार रहना चाहती है, right? For them, I think this kind of ecosystem works well, and this kind of lock, what we try to provide, it helps them so that their thought process are at least relieved in terms of any thinking that they would have
No,
subsequently in
absolutely.
there. So yeah,
Totally
so
agree. Totally agree. Totally agree with you. And when I think about it, there is so much scope of evolution for the service that you all are building, because end of the day, one basic nature or human tendency also is to sort of be lax. Particularly in our country, I guess there is a small minority of people who are disciplined, motivated, driven. They wake up in the morning and go about. Most people left to themselves would just take it easy. So if you have a set of rules or governance, and a clear understanding that if you did not do something, there is a bad outcome of it, right? That also makes things move. It's important sometimes. I mean, in school, children study, and later on, people do things the way they are supposed to be done, because there are bad outcomes if you don't do it. It's important. It's human nature, right? I mean, carrot stick. So I guess it also serves that purpose. It's not just dishonesty; it is also being lax.
yeah,
I have to deliver a service by 5 p.m. I will deliver the service, but only 90% of it, and by 9 p.m., and I will say it
चलता
is
है,
acceptable.
चलता है वाला.
It is acceptable. To be able to change that, also something like this is needed, because now you know that, oh, if I do this, I am going to be penalized for
Correct.
it. Sky is the limit, I think. Sky is the limit.
Yeah, I think you froze for a second.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think talking to you, meeting you is always enriching. And I had a good fortune of being close to you, in many sense, and learning a lot from you. So thank you again, sir, for taking time out and sharing your insights with us. Looking forward to meeting you very soon. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Amit. Been my good fortune also to know, such an eclectic soul as you and other, you have introduced me to other team members, your colleagues in Castler. You've got like a really energetic and great team. I think energy is the key operating word for any organization to succeed. You have loads of it. And thanks for having me. Thanks for listening to me for close to 50 minutes, which is very long, I think. So really, really appreciate and thanks a lot. And all the best to Kastler, for many more glories ahead.